Sarah Bedford is with the Washington Examiner, and she is covering the Hunter Biden expanding scandal. I can't keep up with it, Sarah. He's dirtied up. He seems to be only able to do business in countries that are corrupt. Rusty Ricardo from Miami pointed that out to me. That why is it that Hunter Biden can only get clients in countries that are corrupt? What is new on the Hunter Biden front?
Well, this week we had new documents released by the House Oversight Committee. It was their third installment in the series of memos that they've been doing about the bank records related to the Biden family. And I think what was really interesting is that one, it showed that the Oversight Committee has now confirmed 10 additional $1 million that went to the Biden family network and its associates. Previously, they'd only been able to confirm 10 million. So now we're talking about $20 million from foreign sources that flowed to the Biden network. And then crucially, this is just coming from bank records from people connected through business to the Bidens. The Oversight Committee has not even gotten around yet to subpoenaing bank records of Hunter Biden, Jim Biden, Joe's brother, and then Joe Biden's financial records themselves. That's coming next. But I think, all of these howls of, well, you haven't found any payments directly, related to Joe Biden. Well, they haven't even really looked under that rock yet.
Sarah, how much of the coverage? This is Hugh Hewitt's theory, not anybody else's theory. I believe legacy media is so deeply invested in Donald Trump being a crook and being on the payroll of Russia that they cannot escape the sunk costs of that erroneous story and turn to the obvious mega story. $20 million have gone to the Bidens from foreign government. Is that what is holding back everybody but the Washington Examiner?
You know, I think that's part of it. I mean, that's actually a really good point. I hadn't really thought about it. But yeah, they have staked a lot of their credibility on the Russia story and haven't been willing to sort of revisit how mistaken they've been. But also, I think they're really invested in Biden continuing another term in the White House, right? And I mean, they're able to sort of get away with not covering this by claiming that this is old news. We've known this for years. But the fact is that every time pieces of this have emerged over the years, like in 2020 when these laptop emails showed how deeply involved Joe Biden was in the business and the way that Hunter Biden was making all this money, they didn't cover it then either. So they won't cover it now that it's old news, but they wouldn't cover it when it was new news either.
Do you remember the character Kaiser Soze from a Kevin Spacey film before it became impossible to talk about Kevin Spacey because he's such a creep? Remember Kaiser
They,
Soze?
I do a little bit, yeah.
Well, Kaiser Soze was the guy everyone was looking for when, in fact, the villain was right in front of them, if I recall correctly. $20 million. Is it all from foreign sources?
All from foreign sources, and a big chunk of that is from Russia as well. One of the wealthiest woman in Russia, one of the wealthiest oligarchs in Russia, paid $3.5 million to a company that was shared between Devon Archer and Hunter Biden. I went back through the Devon Archer transcript after I saw that payment to see what he said about it, and he said it must have been a mistake. I'm not sure why that came through. Whoops, I've never seen that before. And so, it's just interesting that there's not being acknowledged that the Biden family was literally on the payroll of Russia. I mean, that was literally happening. And that payment that we're talking about from the Russian oligarch came within a couple of weeks of Joe Biden meeting this woman, this Russian woman, at Cafe Milano, a fancy restaurant in Washington, D.C. So obviously, more than just the illusion of access was getting sold here. These payments line up with phone calls and meetings that Joe Biden had with Hunter Biden's business associates. And if that's not evidence of involvement in the business, I'm not sure any piece of evidence is going to be sufficient for
All right,
Democrats to
I
even.
know Watergate fairly closely because I ran the Nixon Library twice and I'm on the board. And there wasn't a Watergate scandal. There was a drip, 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 then a flood, and then the dam broke and the president resigned. Where are we in that sequence of events? Because $20 million in foreign cash, the Foreign Agents Registration Act is implicated here, and the Hunter plea pardon blew up. Where do you think we are in the course of this story? Are we at the drip, 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 the flood, or the dam breaking point?
I think we're still at a drip, 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 but it's a faster pace. I mean, things are coming out that are starting to be harder and harder for Joe Biden to get away with obfuscating and distancing himself from. He will at some point have to confront some of this evidence, especially now that they're talking to business partners like Devin Archer, and they have more on the docket. So, and House Republicans are looking at an impeachment inquiry, which will bring a lot more of this. That'll start the flood, right? And so as they move closer and closer to that, I do think that we're at the late drip stages.
Yeah, I really do not want an impeachment inquiry unless they've got, I mean, a map, a treasure map, and they've dug up the treasure. But I do not want that because it's bad for the country. But boy, $20 million. Sarah C. Bedford on the site formerly known as Twitter, X, and at the Washington Examiner. Thank you, Sarah. I always appreciate the Friday hits.